Imagine standing on a muddy beach in Central America in 1911 while a group of heavily armed mercenaries steps off a rusty yacht. They are not fighting for freedom, democracy, or glory. They are invading an entire sovereign nation because one guy in Louisiana really did not want to pay tax on imported fruit. That guy was named Sam Zemurray, and his mercenary army successfully overthrew the government of Honduras in exchange for tax-free banana land. It sounds like a ridiculous parody of capitalism, but every word of this story is historically accurate. Before it was over, a single fruit corporation would control armies, buy presidents, and reshape world politics. To understand how a banana could conquer a continent, we have to go back to 1891. A poor 14-year-old Russian immigrant named Sam Zemurray landed in New York with empty pockets. He soon moved south and noticed a bizarre inefficiency in the fruit trade. When banana ships docked in Alabama, any fruit with small brown spots was considered ripe and immediately thrown into the ocean to rot. To major shipping companies, ripe meant ruined. But young Sam saw pure opportunity. He bought the bruised bananas for a fraction of a penny, rented a railroad boxcar, and sold them directly out of the train doors along the tracks before they spoiled. By the time he was 21, Sam had saved a fortune and bought thousands of acres of jungle in Honduras to grow his own crop. But there was a major obstacle in his path. The Honduran government was deeply in debt to British banks. To ensure those debts were paid back, the United States government stepped in and placed American collectors at Honduran customs houses. Every single piece of farming equipment, railway track, or crate that Sam imported into Honduras was slapped with heavy import taxes. Sam realized that paying these taxes would destroy his profit margins, so he decided to take a trip to Washington to ask for a quick favor. When Sam met with United States officials in 1910, he politely asked them to relax the customs rules. President William Howard Taft told him to forget it and strictly ordered Sam not to meddle in foreign affairs. Most people would have gone home and accepted their financial fate, but Sam was built differently. He traveled straight to New Orleans, where he met up with an exiled former president of Honduras named Manuel Bonilla. Together, they plotted a secret military coup. Sam purchased a machine gun, thousands of rounds of ammunition, and a surplus Navy boat, hiding the weaponry right under the noses of United States Secret Service agents watching his every move. To throw off the federal agents, Sam threw a lavish party in New Orleans, complete with modern distractions. While the agents enjoyed the catered food and drinks, Sam and his hired gun, a notorious mercenary named Lee Christmas, slipped out the back door and sailed away. They landed in Honduras, launched a bloody assault, and successfully ousted the standing government. Once reinstated as president, Manuel Bonilla immediately showed his gratitude. He granted Sam thousands of acres of tax-free land and full permission to build railways wherever he wanted. Sam Zemurray had just bought himself a country, and the modern phenomenon known as the Banana Republic was officially born. While Sam was securing his territory, a rival giant was growing rapidly. The United Fruit Company was transforming into an unstoppable corporate empire across Central America. They built ports, laid telegraph lines, managed postal services, and laid thousands of miles of private railroad track. In places like Guatemala, Costa Rica, and Colombia, United Fruit owned more land than the entire local population combined. They paid no taxes and controlled almost every physical way to move goods. The writer O. Henry coined the famous term Banana Republic to describe these vulnerable nations, where a corrupt government served corporate interests while the citizens lived in extreme poverty. Eventually, Sam Zemurray decided to retire. In 1929, he sold his banana company to United Fruit in exchange for millions of corporate shares, making him one of the wealthiest individuals on the planet. But shortly after, the Great Depression hit the global economy like a sledgehammer. United Fruit stock plummeted by over 90% under conservative Boston management, who had no idea how to navigate real crisis. Sam watched his lifetime fortune evaporate while board members sat in comfortable chairs sipping tea. Deeply furious at their incompetence, Sam quietly started buying up discounted shares of United Fruit, while the executive board remained completely oblivious to his strategy. In 1933, Sam walked into a United Fruit executive meeting in Boston. The aristocratic board members looked down on his thick accent and rough background, laughing off his advice. Sam did not argue. He simply produced a massive stack of voting proxies, proving he now owned the majority of the company. He looked the suit-wearing executives in the eyes and famously declared, "You boys have been ruining my company. Now get out." He fired the entire board on the spot and took full control. If you are enjoying this insane slice of history, hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss another wild story. Under Sam's leadership, United Fruit became more profitable and powerful than ever. But by 1951, political tides in Guatemala were shifting dramatically. The country elected a Democratic president named Jacobo Arbenz, who wanted to lift his people out of poverty. Arbenz noticed that United Fruit owned vast stretches of fertile land that sat completely unused while local farmers starved. He passed a legal reform to buy back unused land and distribute it to peasants. To compensate United Fruit, the government offered to pay the exact value the company had declared on its official tax forms. Here was the brilliant trap. For decades, United Fruit had severely lied on their tax declarations, vastly underreporting their land value to avoid paying taxes. Now, they were offered pennies for millions of dollars worth of property, completely caught in their own lie. United Fruit refused to accept the offer and turned to a new weapon: public relations. They hired Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud and father of modern propaganda. Bernays orchestrated a massive smear campaign in American newspapers, framing the Guatemalan president not as a democratic reformer, but as a dangerous Soviet communist puppet threatening American security. The propaganda machine worked with terrifying precision. United Fruit had deep connections within the United States government. The Secretary of State and the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency were both former legal representatives for the company. In 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower approved Operation PBSUCCESS. The CIA trained a rebel force, launched psychological warfare over the radio, and bombed Guatemala City. President Arbenz was forced to resign and fled the country. The CIA installed a brutal military dictator who immediately returned all land to United Fruit and stripped local workers of basic labor rights, launching decades of violent civil conflict. Think about the sheer scale of what took place. A corporate marketing department successfully manipulated the world's highest intelligence agencies into staging a military coup, all to preserve high profit margins on yellow fruit. For decades, decisions made in corporate boardrooms directly determined who ruled sovereign nations, who went to war, and who starved. United Fruit eventually rebranded to escape its blood-soaked reputation, and today you likely know them as Chiquita. The cheap bananas sitting on your kitchen counter today carry a complicated history written by mercenaries, board games, secret agents, and unbridled corporate greed. This wild chapter of history leaves us with a surprisingly relevant truth about human nature today. It shows how easily human beings accept dynamic systems of exploitation as long as the end product is cheap, convenient, and distant. The average consumer never wanted a military invasion, but they did want cheap fruit without asking questions. When power and profit align, people in authority will craft narratives that exploit public fear to protect their own interests. It reminds us to look beyond polished explanations and examine who truly benefits when outrage is manufactured. From a young immigrant selling bruised fruit along railroad tracks to a corporate empire that brought down foreign governments, the story of the banana shows that real history is far stranger than fiction. If you ever look at a simple yellow fruit the same way again, then our job here is done. Which bizarre historical story do you want us to explore next? Drop your ideas in the comments below, hit that like button, and subscribe so you do not miss our next journey into history's wildest moments.